Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have everybody with us today. I think we'll get started, even though we know there'll be other people joining us today. I'm Jeannie Darling, Executive Director of Cornell Cooperative Extension in Delaware County, and it's really a wonderful day for us to be together and to begin a very special series of self-care in the summertime. It is a series that will really help us build resilience. It's part of our resilience training that we've been offering this year. And we want to continue to give people lots of wonderful things to take care of themselves over the summertime and be resilient as they work and as they are in their community and also even in the family setting. It's so important today, and we want to make sure that everyone has these tools that they can use to actually really do great work in their community with their families and certainly on the job. So I'm going to start out by saying this series is sponsored by Cornell Cooperative Extension in Delaware and Orange County. It was actually put together by the Delaware County ACEs Task Force and funded by the Delaware County Rural Healthcare Alliance. We're excited that we have 5 different sessions for you to attend every Tuesday from 12 to 1, starting today. We're partnering with not only Orange County Extension to bring this to you, but also Illinois Extension. We have 4 students, PhD students, that will be presenting information on the research on self-care. And I think you'll find that it's pretty interesting to see what's happening across the country and what cooperative extension has in terms of resources in this field. So we wanted to actually share it with you and see if it's something that we should continue to offer. Illinois Extension offers a series on Wednesdays, and I was participating in it last summer and felt the series was really excellent. And I thought, boy, I need to bring that to Delaware County. And Julica really, I think resonated with her as well. And we decided, this would be something that would be really fun to do and really would actually grow resilience in both of our counties as well as the region in New York State. So we're really happy to bring that to you today. I want to thank Karen Graves and Julica von Stackelberg for helping us put this series together and for getting us ready for our first session today. So there are a few things that we want to really talk about. We definitely will be recording this series every week for 5 weeks. We will have an evaluation. We want you to hop onto the evaluation, complete it so you get a certificate. Also for teachers, you can get CTLE credits. So we want to make sure that you not only have credits, but you have handouts, you have the resources that you need from the program. And we'll be actually trying some new things. We've had challenges in the past. We're still going to continue to challenge you, and it may be a different way, but giving you ideas of things that you can do to practice what you're learning each week. The other thing that we're trying to actually do is really connect you with other people and other resources through this program. So we hope that as a group, we can have really fun to get together and actually give you the tools that you can use every day this summer to be taking care of yourself. We know with resilience, it's important to start with self-care, right? Self-care and safety. And so that's why we're actually doing this series for you today. We're going to basically put information in the chat so that you can get your links to fill out the evaluation from the chat. And then you should be able to get your certificate if you fill out the evaluation. And we'll probably be adding that to the chat throughout the program and making sure that you can get to the resources and get a certificate for attending. We'll be doing the credits at the very end of the program. So after the 5th session, we'll be working to make sure you get credits if you're interested in credits for the program. The other thing that we'll be doing is maybe doing some questions at the end of each program. It's something that I've learned from participating in other webinars and also working with Illinois Extension is the question and answer is kind of fun to do at the end of the program. So we'll be looking in the chat for your questions. And if we have maybe 5 minutes at the end of the program today, we'll be starting to maybe answer some of those questions for you. So again, thank you so much for participating today. Welcome. We're excited about this series. We hope you are too. We hope to see you every Tuesday at noon. And you know, hopefully we can have a wonderful time together this summer learning. And I want to introduce our presenter. Julika von Skakelberg is a credentialed parenting educator and certified parenting coach who focuses on building resilience for families and the community at Cornell Cooperative Extension, Orange County. She teaches a variety of parenting and family life topics, including workshops for professionals who are working with families and children. She co-chairs the Orange County Parenting Coalition and currently spearheads the Orange County Resilience Project. So she's very committed to resilience. We know that. We're planning to do some programming this fall, and we'll be introducing those programs to you at the end of the summer so that we can get you involved in continuing to learn with us and grow with us this fall. So Julika also serves on a number of committees that address structural racism and implicit biases, and that strives to create an anti-racist services in her community. She has an international background. She includes working towards ending gender-based violence and community building. She's also a mom of 3. She loves spending time outdoors and with her kids. She also loves to listen to podcasts and audiobooks. She's definitely a person that loves to learn just like all of us do. So we want to welcome Julika. She's going to talk a little bit about mindfulness and stress today, right? And then we have, we'll be actually talking about physical activity next Tuesday. We're going to be addressing nutrition and sleep and all of the really interesting self-care topics that you'll be interested in learning about. So welcome, Julika. We're going to turn it over to you. We're excited that you're with us today.
Thank you so much, Ginny, and welcome everybody. I'm very excited to be here with you and also to see some familiar faces. These days, I get really excited when I recognize names on the Zoom as opposed to in the room. And so this is really good to be here with folks who I already know. So I am going to start here, start us out. So as Ginny said, and you know, the topic for today is mindfulness for stress reduction. And so before we get there, I just want to start us out with a little game, because oftentimes, you know, we come from different places and to actually get here. So let's start to activate ourselves and get here. So I'm sure many of you know the game. Would you rather? And so what I want to ask you to do is put in the chat the answers, and we'll go through this fairly quickly. So if you have typos or whatever, we don't care, you know, you can just type in your answers. That's okay. So we kind of get a gauge, or we can gauge what are some of the preferences and who we are, just get to know different pieces about each other. So now the first question is, would you rather eat an apple or a banana? Okay, and I want to put my chat on. Yes, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so second one, would you rather drink coffee or tea? Okay. So would you rather spend time by the ocean or spend time in the mountains? And would you rather stay up late or rise early? I guess you could do both too, but then you have to attend the sleep session that's coming up. Okay. And would you rather steer a boat or ride a tractor? Okay. And would you rather know all languages in the world or be able to communicate with animals? Great. Thank you all so much for participating in this. So we got a little impression of what preferences we all have. And I have to tell you, I cannot see the chat for some reason. So I will go back later and look at, what the preferences were. But I hope that you guys can see it and that you can follow along and get like an idea of the preferences in our group. So thank you for playing along. So when we talk about mindfulness, right, one of the things that we're hoping to achieve with mindfulness is that we want to have some kind of balance in our lives, right? And so the question that we have to kind of start out with is asking, is it a myth or a reality? Is there such a thing as balance? And I don't know about you all, maybe I should do that as a poll question, do you think it's possible to have a work-life balance or, any kind of balance in life, or does it go more in cycles and do we go in phases, or, what's the kind of rhythm of where we pay attention? And so mindfulness is really a wonderful tool, and this is what we want to talk about today. And we will start by getting a little bit more of an understanding of what the mechanisms behind that are. But mindfulness can really be a wonderful tool to kind of just be aware of where things are at. So I also want to let you know that in case of an emergency, this is a really wonderful tool to remember I am here, right? I am here, I'm standing here in this very moment. Sometimes things can get so stirred up and we feel we have to run in all different directions at the same time, or we get so frazzled that we don't know where to begin. And sometimes it helps to just kind of start with reminding ourselves, I am here and this is where I am. And so I want to invite all of us together to just take a deep breath in, maybe two, and then we can move into today's presentation. And, there you have another tool, which I'm sure you already know. So let's just take a deep breath into the belly, really blow it up. And exhale through the mouth. Let's do it one more time because it feels so good. Very nice. So thank you. And here's the concept really that I want to introduce is that when we have balanced living, right, things often don't happen in linear ways. There isn't always a perfect balance of things. But what we can strive to is integration. And integration is really how we want to introduce the topic of mindfulness, in the sense that it's a tool that can be integrated into different things that we're doing. And I hope to give you some kind of ideas for that and what that means, as we go along. So what we're going to talk about today is we'll kind of remind ourselves what stress is and how we identify it. Then we'll talk a little bit more about what integration really means. We'll talk about some of the elements that lead to some sort of a sense of balance. We'll talk about resilience because, of course, I cannot not talk about resilience and mindfulness as a tool. And then we'll think about, how can we really put things together and put them into practice. Okay, and as Ginny said in the beginning, I want to invite you to put questions in the chat along the way. And I will leave a little bit of time, like 5 minutes or so, that we can answer some of your questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so when we talk about stress, and I know that many of you have attended some of our previous webinars and discussions and teach-ins, so to speak, around the topic of resilience. And so we oftentimes talk about adverse childhood experiences, or basically experiences that cause what we talk about is toxic stress. And so in order to kind of understand, because sometimes we mix the kinds of stressors that we experience, right? So there are what in the mindfulness world is referred to as 3 types of stress. There's some positive stress. And so those could be things like a wedding or a new job or the arrival of a new baby in a family, or it could be, an upcoming vacation. So there are usually events that we look forward to, but that can nevertheless have some kind of stressful, aspects to it. And so, but they usually have, an end, a foreseeable end, and then things move along. And so this is what we call positive stress. And it's, a normal type of stress that doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on our physiology. Then there's what we call tolerable stress. So if you have worked with deadlines at work, if you're writing grant applications, which I know many of us do all the time, or we're part of the process, or if, we have, let's say, an exam, or there is, our children might be graduating from high school or college, or things that we have to put together that ultimately also have some, weight on us, or, figuring out how to drive the kids to 2 or 3 different summer camps, and the logistics of this. So that can be quite stressful, but it's tolerable, right? It doesn't kick us out of what we call is the resilient zone. And so I do want to invite you to go back to that webinar where we talked about what the resilient zone is. And there are links to that, I believe, in the chat. But really what that means is basically that we're still in a zone where we are able to self-regulate. And what that means is like we're able to respond to our own emotions and react, or to regulate our reactions to our own emotions that we're feeling. So it's basically just before, it becomes so intense that it's impossible to exercise some kind of self-control in a sense. And so then there's what is called toxic stress. And toxic stress is when there's repeated events that basically cause us to experience some intense sensations and emotions that lead to a reaction in our brain and physiology that flood our body with so-called stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline and so forth. And when there's too much of it and it cannot be decomposed, so to speak, through normal exercise or, taking some time out, then we are experiencing the effects on our physiology of stress in much, much deeper ways. And this is why it is called toxic stress. This is not a kind of a situation that we want to be in for a long time. And mindfulness, as well as other tools, or mindfulness as one of the tools that we can stick in our toolboxes, is a really wonderful way to help us identify where we are on that spectrum of our, emotional wellness, so to speak, and look at where are we able to self-regulate. And so obviously sometimes there are situations that are outside of our control, and other times we can't control things. So this is when this idea of, in case of an emergency, I am here, can be really helpful, because this is bringing us back to ourselves, and this is what we can regulate and maybe control to some extent, better than our environments or events that are happen around us. So I invite you to go back to some of the last webinars, the recordings, because there's quite a bit of talk about this. But let's get into understanding some of our symptoms of stress. And this is a handout that you will also find. Karen will put a link in the chat for us with a link to this document that you can look at. But I want to find out from you. So, and if you're brave enough, you might be able to put this in the chat. Where do you notice in your body, basically, that you are experiencing stress? So do you experience that, you feel like crying, for long periods of time? So you feel depressed, or maybe you are smoking and you are increasing your smoking, or you're just feeling restless all the time or exhausted. Are you, and oh my God, haven't we heard this for so much in this pandemic? Oh my God, I need a drink. Is that how we're going to increase our alcohol or other substance intake, because, we're experiencing high levels of stress? Do you feel something like a dry mouth or throat, or grinding your teeth, nail biting? Do you feel it in your body? I can feel it for sure, oftentimes in my shoulders. All of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I'm so tense, I didn't even realize. And so then, you can say, oh, wow, I guess there's a sign that, something is tensing up. I might feel a little bit stressed. Or do you get headaches, feel dizzy, or do you feel hot easily, or no more appetite? We talked about the shoulders, or sweaty hands, right? Do you have a rapid or faster heartbeat, heartburn, stomach upset, cramps, increased urination, or diarrhea? And, I think if you're a teacher, you might have heard more complaints, or, in a nurse or someone in the healthcare field, kids complaining about stomach aches a lot, right? So coming to school, do you feel your legs, or are you restless, typing your fingers? Do you feel like you want to just be on your own? You don't want anyone, you're withdrawing from people, or you're easily agitated and feel aggressive, or so bored, or that you can't concentrate? So not able to sleep, or sleep to escape. Those could all be things. Sorry, I'm just putting this here off for a second, because I do want to see your posts. And thank you so much for participating. I see how you are noticing your symptoms. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you all can relate to some of this. So what that means is, really what it shows us is that we have a physical response. Like, our bodies read our situations very well. And that's a good thing, because it's basically giving us some messages, that tell us, hello, I need some, I'm feeling stressed, please take care of me, or, this is too much. And so if we're looking at this picture here, you can see that the difference between a so-called relaxed or calm brain as well as a stressed brain. And what's mostly different is that you can see the activity in the parts of the brain, the higher parts of the brain, the reasoning, decision-making, thinking, that part of the brain, you can see there's a lot of activity, which is why you see so much green, which is really shows, blood flow in those parts of the brain. Whereas on the right-hand side, you see that there's a lot less blood flow through all parts of the brain, and more in, some of the lower parts of the brain, which basically means that the fight, flight, and response mechanism is what is really kicking in, or freeze, right? So this is how we see in our brain how we're responding to our environment. And again, you know, these emotions and sensations and the kind of the feedback that our body is giving us and some of our behaviors is very indicative. And so when we learn to read that, and we learn to read that, we have in one of the last webinars, we also talked about interoception, right? That we're learning to read our own bodies and our own sensations. And just to give you like a sneak peek, we will be talking more about the polyvagal theory in the fall. And that is part of basically this concept that we're really learning to read our different nervous systems in our bodies and to make sense of it so that we can then respond and better take care of ourselves. So, and again, mindfulness is a really great beginning, and we'll talk about some of the mindfulness practices. But here, this is where integration is so important, right? So we talked about the balancing thing may not always be the case, but we can integrate different practices into our basically our everyday lives, including our work habits and so forth. And so one of the pieces is that integration really means that we're helping to prevent things from lingering on and building up. So when we're getting to that level of, let's say, feeling tolerable stress, right? And it's becoming a little bit more edgy, or it's just adding up, we can learn to prevent to go to these toxic situations, right? And so this is where we begin to read ourselves. And so burnout prevention, for example, is really important. We don't take it seriously because we live in a culture that celebrates hardworking and that really celebrates, pushing through and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with these qualities. However, we want to do this in a way that we can be sustainable at the efforts that we're putting in, right? And so that means that we also need to prioritize what are the things that we really feel are, important in order to keep us in that time, in that frame. And then how do we develop and build these practices that, can really be contribute to these healthy habits. So there's another handout in that link in that folder to in the link leads you to a folder which has 2 handouts, and the cat was one and this is the second. And so here I really want to invite you to think about what are some of the things that you can do in these different areas that contribute to your well-being. So, socially, what is that? And again, here, it's not about doing all of these at the same time because, oh my goodness, I mean, I would not be able to do all of this at the same time, but it's really about identifying what are these things that I can do when the situation arises where that is possible, right? So this is the integration piece where we understand how to integrate different elements into our lives. So, socially, for example, are we, connecting with friends and family in a way that it feels really good and it fuels us, right? Do you have like a conversation partner who really stimulates you, or someone who just listens, or you can hang out with and have fun? What are some of the things that contribute to your emotional well-being? Do you have a practice of writing a journal to be aware of the emotions and the feelings that are coming up, and so forth? Intellectually, are you feeding yourself to keep yourself in that growth mindset, right? As Ginny mentioned, I love podcasts and books. And sometimes my brain is so full, I can't stick anything else in there. And then that's not the piece that I need right now. And other times I feel like I'm in a rut and, I need to have some stimulation. So what are those pieces? Environmental, what kind of a place are we living in? And I'm not talking about just, are you feeling comfortable in your space right now? You can look around. What are the elements that make you feel good? Physically, are you doing things to contribute to your physical wellness? Do you need to stretch, or do you need to go and, you know, box, do some kickboxing, right? So it could be so many different things. Educational, spiritual, I think you get the gist. I want to invite you now to pick 2 of these areas and write down 2 or 3 things that you would like to focus on that supports your wellness. And think about it in a way that, you know, you are really getting the sensation from the activity or whatever that you're doing, that you are, how do you connect that to your body? Like in your body, how does that feel when you do this practice or this activity? So I'm going to give you all, let's say, until, yeah, let's take 5 minutes to write that down for yourself. And then I would love to hear in the chat, or you could unmute yourself as well. And I'll come back. I'll, you know, say when the time is up. So at 3:30, at 12:37, we'll come back and we'll hear about, you know, what you wrote about. We'll hear from a few of you. So I'm going to put myself on mute so that you don't have to hear everything here. And we'll be back. Okay. So I am curious if you are willing to put something in the chat and or unmute yourself and share. I already see some things here. Hiking, spending time in nature, listening to music, going to therapy, doing yoga, reading more literary works, which stimulates my escape to fantasy to ease stress and simply enjoy the prose of a creator of that prose to stimulate the knowledge, my vocabulary. Yes, 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 I love that. Meditation helps relaxing muscles, quiets the mind and reduces anxiety. Physical walking, stretching. Yes, I love that. Okay, anyone else would like to share? You can unmute yourself as well. Okay, so many of you wrote some things down, which is fantastic. And sometimes you know all of these things already, and we really just want to remind ourselves, and we also learn from each other when we're, sharing these things. So this is hopefully a good reminder. Yeah, thank you all for coming along. So just to talk about this for one more moment here when we talk about resilience, right? So when we talk about resilience, I often say, resilience, or we really come from this perspective, resilience is not a do-it-yourself project. There are so many factors that come from the outside that impact our ability to be resilient. But this definition focuses on what it means to be resilient when we have that kind of control over, our ability or the ability to control what our environment is. So as you can see here, it says, the ability to bounce back from adverse experiences. So, and, being able to adjust to that. So the capacity to make realistic plans and take steps to carry them out. A positive view of yourself and confidence in your strengths and abilities, skills in communication and problem solving, and the capacity to manage strong feelings and impulses. And what that really indicates is exactly that picture in the brain, that scan that you saw earlier, right? So that's a brain that is in all parts active, as opposed to just in the survival part of the brain. And so all of these are factors that we can develop ourselves, right? So this is the do-it-yourself project part of resilience. So there are some aspects, and what you talked about are some of the things we can do. And just to kind of give us a little humor, I want to share a video with you real quick. And I'm going over a different route to do this, sorry. Share. Where is my... I have so many windows open as always. Okay, actually it's in here. So just give me a moment. You can see me clicking around. So let's listen to this for a moment.
Like that, I tried dealing with it internally. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful slide. When followed in life, I guarantee you, life will be different. I guarantee you, if this is applied in life, we can have peaceful night's sleep. Here it is. Do you have a problem in life? No? Then why worry? Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Can you do something about it? Yes. Then why worry? Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Can you do something about it? No? Then why worry? Isn't it? Is it not? Why worry? क्यों हम लोग चिंता कर रहे हैं? Why are we constantly bogging our mind?
Okay, so yes, there are some things, right, that are in our control, and then why worry? So mindfulness as a technique, as a tool, can be really helpful to walk us through that diagram that can remind us of where we are in the process, and then hopefully let go of it, right? Okay, so, and you know what I'm going to do is I will put the link of this video in the chat, and then you can, you know, share it. Maybe somebody needs it. So please feel free to do so. Obviously, it's all public information. Okay, so let's move on here, and just there's a beautiful poem here that I want to share with you, and it's called the crayon box that talked. And so it says, you know, wouldn't it be terrible? Wouldn't it be sad if just one single color was the color that we had? If everything was purple or red or blue or green, if yellow, pink, or orange was all that could be seen, can you just imagine how dull the world would be? If just one single color was all that we could see. And so really what this kind of alludes to is the fact that, you know, all feelings, all the spectrum of the experiences that we have is really what contributes or helps to contribute to make our experiences so very colorful. And so and taking them for what they are, right, and really welcoming them in and allowing them to shine in their own way, right? I don't know how many of you saw the film Inside Out, but it shows how each one of the different characters, and they were, you know, representing different emotions, had a role to play. And so this is the same thing here, right? And there's really a purpose. And oh, if we're talking about references, I always have to, when I talk about emotions, I need to reference this book. There's a book called The Art of Empathy. And this is by Dr. Carla McLaren. And she writes about how each one of the emotions that we experience really has a job, and how we can better learn to listen and understand those you know, those emotions, and then welcome them. And so that's part of this interoception that we're talking about, learning to understand and read our own sensations and interpret them so that we can really self-regulate, right? And so this is again where mindfulness comes as is so handy as a tool. So I will read this for us here. Mindfulness as a tool. Mindfulness means maintaining a moment by moment awareness of thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and surrounding environment through a gentle and nurturing lens. Underscore that. Mindfulness also involves acceptance, meaning that we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings without judging them, without believing, for instance, that there's a right or wrong way of thinking or feeling in a given moment. When we practice mindfulness, our thoughts tune into what we're sensing in the present moment, rather than rehashing the past or imagining the future. Okay, and so what I want to do is, I'm going to stop sharing this here again. I would love to and to do a quick mindfulness practice with you all. So there are different ways that we can practice mindfulness, right? It could be everyday mindfulness, where we're really trying to be as aware of and really mindful of our movements, for example, how I'm talking to you right now, what my whole sensations are in my body. You know, I can feel my feet on the floor. I'm standing. I can feel, my throat might be a little bit dry. Maybe you can hear it in my voice or not. I can feel a little bit tense. I didn't sleep so well on this side tonight, right? And I also feel my thighs because I'm doing this freaking squat challenge this month, and I have to do 1,500 squats or something in the month of July, so I can feel it, right? So being mindful of all of these sensations. Okay, and so what I want to do is a practice that kind of brings us into our bodies. And then we'll do one other practice as well. And so I'm going to invite you to, if you can, stand up where you're at. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk in place together. And so, you know, put both of your feet on the ground and really feel how you're standing. And before you move anything, just, you know, feel your feet on the ground and how they're holding you. Notice all the sensations that you have in your body doing it. Are your shoulders a little bit tense, ready to move, or are you relaxed? And there's no judgment to either way. It's really just noticing. What you want to do is just say, aha, this is the sensation I'm feeling. Aha. You're playing detective. You're just writing it down, no judgment. Okay, and then you are going to take your first step on the spot with your right leg. So that means we're going to shift our weight slightly to the left side. And then notice what that does to your body and maybe how you're beginning to slowly lift your right knee and you're activating different muscles. And then you move you remove your feet from the ground. You lift your knee and you place your foot again on the floor and you let it roll down. What are you noticing as you're shifting your weight to your right foot? And then you begin to do the same thing on the left side. You lift off your foot, take a step, and then come back to your feet. And so, you know, just paying attention without judgment, just really figuring out. And so if we were in a room together, we would walk around a little bit like this, just to pay attention to how we're walking together. Okay, any questions that you may have at this point? Okay. So then the next activity I want to do, you can take a seat or make yourself comfortable, however that is. Imagine, you know, when I asked at the beginning, apple or banana. So are you an apple person or a banana person? And take that fruit that you picked and imagine that you're holding this in your hand. And look at that fruit in your hand and think about how does it feel? Is it heavy? Is it round or is it, you know, does it have a thick skin? Is it sticky? What are the sensations that you're noticing? And then look at, is there a scent to it? Does it smell in any way? And as you're noticing that, you know, you might have to peel it in order to eat it. Or you can just, you know, bite into it depending on what you picked. And then think about the idea or, you know, eating this fruit. And what is the sensation in your mouth that you're feeling as you are getting ready for this? Can you feel the juiciness of the apple or the sweetness of the banana? And where in your mouth is it? And so then you would do the same thing and you would, you know, start to take a bite and figure out where in your mouth do you feel the sensations? Where do you chew it? How do you chew it? And how long does it take to chew it so that you can swallow it? Do you normally chew it quickly and swallow fast, or do you take your time and you savor it? So those are some practices that we call mindfulness practices. And it really is about, slowing things down, noticing our sensations, and really paying attention to that without any judgment. That's it. And what we're doing by what is basically taking place inside of us while we're being mindful or practicing mindfulness is that we're waking up, or we're becoming aware, we're allowing these sensations to really take place without necessarily interrupting them. And so that's where, first of all, we can read ourselves a lot of times, but we can also then, just take certain processes, allow certain processes to take place. So I'm going to go back to my slides for a moment. And here is a practice too that you can think about when you are practicing mindfulness, right? So I don't actually remember why this is called elimination die. So the question is, we're trying to take away things that are in the way of us being able to really feel good, right? So to take away, so identifying what makes me feel good in my body. What are some of the sensations that feel really great, right? So somebody said to me the other day, I love milkshakes, but my body just doesn't feel good with them, right? So understanding how we respond to certain things we're putting in our bodies, or even when we wear certain garments, do we feel comfortable in them or not? What makes you feel good inside of your body? What makes you feel good in your mind? What are the thoughts, when you open your social media first thing in the morning and you read some news or watch the news or whatever that is? How does that feel in your mind? Do you feel connected and safe and lovable? Or do you feel in your mind like, oh my God, all these things that are taking place, right? So what are the sensations that you're getting? What makes you feel good in your heart, right? When are you able to open your heart even? Is your heart soft? Or do you feel protective of your feelings and the ways that you're connecting? What do you really need? Do you need to move your body? Do you need to take a nap? Do you need to connect to somebody? This goes back to that wheel we talked about. Or what brings you huggy, right? And so I don't know how many of you have heard this term before, but it's been definitely discussed many times in the news. So it's a Danish word that is used to acknowledge a special feeling or moment, and it can be alone or with friends, at home or out, ordinary or extraordinary, but it's always cozy and charming or special, right? So this idea of what makes you feel cozy and charming and special, or one of those. Is it a space in your home that you can go to, that you can feel that feeling, that you can sit down on a chair and snuggle up with a blanket, or in front of a ventilator if it's really hot right now? But what is the place where you feel really comfortable and cozy, and where you feel, this is just, you can be yourself? Is it or with somebody? What are what sort of environment elicits these kinds of things, or experiences elicits that kind of hugger, right? So that's really the identification. So what we're doing with mindfulness is really that we're hoping to create this path, to a more integrated life in some ways. And we can do this, by really saying, like, I understand the detrimental effect that stress has on me. So I am committed to reducing it. We often talked about stress management in the past. I think that's so misleading, in the sense that, yes, we know what it means, but we really need to talk about stress reduction, because stress is not good, especially, that toxic stress. So really committing to saying, like, no, I don't want to go there, and I am committed to reducing that when I can. Then focus what's in our control, right? The why worry thing. Actively boost do things that boost our resilience. So that can be many different things. It goes back to the wheel we talked about, and then integrating the elements that strengthen us, right? So this is the elimination diet in a way, because we don't want to focus on the things that we want to do better all the time. We really want to do the things that strengthen us. What are the, practices that we can do it? And practicing mindfulness in this is a really wonderful thing, a wonderful tool for all of this to do. So I am curious if there are any questions that are left here, or, points, something that came up that made you think, oh yeah, this is something that reminded me of a situation. I want to open the floor for your participation, conversation.
I don't see anything in the chat, Julika. Any questions?
Yes.
So Julika, what could we do between now and next week to practice mindfulness? Whoa.
Yes. So I would definitely go to that wheel and think, even pick one of the practices, the areas there, and think about one thing you can do. Sometimes it's overwhelming. I am one of those who gives myself programs that I oftentimes can't fulfill because I'm saying I'm doing this in physical, I'm doing this in intellectual and this, and, next thing you know is I'm overwhelmed. So starting with one thing in one of these areas can be, this 1% thing. I recently read a book, maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called Atomic Habits. And the author, I think his last name is Carr. I'm so sorry, I can't remember him, but Google it or look it up. It's really a worthwhile book to read. It's interesting. But he talks about this, when we're on a trajectory on a plane, and you're making like a 1% shift in your direction, you're changing the ultimate goal that you're getting to. And so this is kind of how I'm seeing it, right? It's not about making like this 10%, I'm going in a new direction and, going totally different. It's really incremental changes of 1% shift at a time that is going to lead you to the destination that you hope to get to. And so that's kind of, what I have. And, you can put yourself little reminders in your phone or, notepads, the stick-it notes on your mirror or whatnot to just remind you of these incremental changes that you are trying to make, or practices. Maybe it's not a change. Maybe you want to strengthen a habit, but that really is a great way of doing that. And someone asked, have you heard of the of doing art to reduce stress? Absolutely. There are so many practices. I don't know do we have any artists in here? Is there anyone who can attest to it? And I don't know, did any one of you start knitting or doing any? I started rug punching actually during the pandemic. And it's some kind of art, I guess, right? It's a craft you're doing to do something to reduce some of the stress. And that was a wonderful experience. Yeah, someone likes coloring books. Yes, and they're the pre-made coloring books even for, the mandalas that you can fill out to kind of soothe yourself or for that practice, mindfulness, stress reduction. Yes, and I think just expressing ourselves in different ways is a wonderful way. It could be in, all kinds of mediums or media, I guess, that we can use. Yes, and totally, you do not have to be good at the art to do it, to release stress. That's it. And art therapy, of course, is a great tool too for healing.
We want to thank everybody for being with us today. Karen has put a link in the chat for the survey and the certificate. So we hope you will do a little survey evaluation for us, get your certificate, get credits if you're interested, sign up for them. And we want to thank Julika for a wonderful presentation today. We hope you will do a little bit of mindfulness between now and next Tuesday and keep it going. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone again next Tuesday. And we'll be talking about exercise. It'll be a fun day. So thanks everyone for being with us today. Have a wonderful day.